Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and I hope you had a really nice Christmas. Obviously I'm behind. I'm already like 2 episodes, maybe even 3 episodes behind at this point by the time this one finishes uploading. But I just finished watching episode 4 of season 2 of What If. What if Iron Man crashed into the Grandmaster? And this is actually the episode that was supposed to come out during season 1. So, I think this is going to end up being the one that's probably the least connected out of all of them. Interestingly enough, though, the little glimpse that we saw at the beginning of season 1 of this Tony Stark and this Gamora, and they had the Infinity Stone destroyer thing. That thing did not come up at all. I was actually really surprised. I thought that was going to be like the main component leading up to the events of, the whole multiversal Avengers and them trying out that machine. But it didn't come up, and I was kind of shocked. But we do see, at the very least, this version of Gamora and Tony Stark, becoming friends and teaming up, and they even, like, the opening is like, yeah, you've already met this Gamora, but here's her story. So they're kind of fully acknowledging that this was supposed to already have been released. Now, why wasn't it released with the first season? I honestly don't know. I don't see anything in here that would seem weird or like cause that to happen. So not really sure why they didn't put this out in the first season. Maybe they wanted a certain amount of episodes and this was just one too many. I don't know. Maybe that's been answered somewhere. I'll have to go look that up. But anyways, yeah, basically immediately following the events of the first Avengers movie, going through the wormhole with the missile, destroying the Chitauri ships. But instead of landing back on Earth, what if Tony Stark went to Sakaar and he met the Grandmaster and they started this like death race type situation, and basically they fought over control of the planet, and yeah, that's essentially what happens. And the interesting kind of spin here, well, one, how does Sakaar work exactly? I know it's a bunch of wormholes and just junk through space randomly just falls through the wormholes onto this junk planet. I don't know, it doesn't really make any sense. I don't know why it happens. But whatever, we just accept it, I guess. But yeah, Gamora has been sent to Sakaar, immediately searching for Iron Man. And I know that they state that time works differently on Sakaar, so Tony Stark having been there for like a couple hours or even a day before Gamora arrives, maybe it's been weeks or months in regular space. Like that's the kind of another weird thing about Sakaar that they don't really get into. They just say time works differently here. What does that mean? I don't know. Because even as Tony immediately arrives on Sakaar, they're like, oh yeah, we've been talking about you for days. So it's like, okay, I guess those events happened. Anyways, the other interesting thing, of course, and this is still something that they have not actually answered in the MCU, I guess it doesn't matter at this point, but how does Thanos know so much about the Avengers and Iron Man and Tony Stark specifically? Like, you know what I mean? Like I understand maybe he would get footage from the battle of New York and stuff like that, but by the events of Infinity War, it feels like he knows everyone's first and last names. He knows exactly what their whole deal is. It's like really personal for him. And the only thing we ever get is, oh, you're not the only one burdened with knowledge. But what does that mean specifically, Thanos? Who's feeding you this information? Is it Loki? Did Loki give you information? But even then, that would have only been Loki up until Avengers 1. So like where's the rest of this info coming from? I don't entirely know. I guess you could technically say maybe Thanos only knows information up until Avengers 1, because I guess Loki controlled Hawkeye, and maybe Hawkeye would have all that information. I don't know. But either way, Thanos knows so much about Iron Man, Tony Stark, that he's able to send Gamora to go hunt him down, specifically even on Sakaar. And again, how would she know that he's there? I don't know. Maybe they broadcast it everywhere, so it's like a big deal and it's just public knowledge at that point. Oh, he's on Sakaar, let's go get him. Anyways, they have a big death race, and Gamora's trying to kill him the whole time, but eventually he's able to like talk her over to the good side, which, you know, that's like always going to be Gamora's thing, right? She starts off evil, but she's not really evil deep down, and so even the alternate timeline Gamora is able to be talked into being good in game, you know, so like it makes sense, like that tracks that like any version of Gamora will be able to talk into being good. Yeah, basically they win the death race. They are able to stop the Grandmaster, who dies in a really weird way. Like what's her name? The Topaz. Topaz is like assistant with the melty stick. The stick like barely touches the Grandmaster's foot, and he starts melting, right? And the melting thing's always been shown to be like a really gruesome way to die, but then when he's like, you know, when he's being dissolved, he's like, oh no, I'm melting, like as if it's not a big deal. So I don't know, is he just a weirdo forever, or is death just not a big deal to him? I don't know, but he's like, oh, whatever, you know. And he's just joking about it as he's actually dying. It was very strange. It was a weird way for the Grandmaster to die, but I suppose he's dead, even though he did not seem like it was a big deal. Anyways, and then they kind of saved the day. Oh, and Valkyrie becomes the ruler of Sakaar, so I guess she was always going to be a ruler of somewhere. If it's not New Asgard, it was going to be Sakaar. And then Gamora and this Tony Stark go off to go take on Thanos, and we don't see exactly like how it fully ends up, because Gamora attacks Thanos with the melty stick, and we see that it touches his armor, but he just kind of gives her a look, you know, as if he's not quite dead. So I suppose he could like quickly detach the armor before it dissolves him, you know, and maybe we'll see that fight play out, but I kind of doubt that he died that easily. But then again, season 1 of What If had Thanos die really easily a couple times, so I don't know. I guess we'll see maybe at some point how these events carried over to what we saw in season 1, where they got this machine and they're destroying the Infinity Stones, and you know, how does this line up with that, because this is supposed to be those version of the characters, right? So I don't know. I'm sure we'll get answers. But yeah, this was a perfectly fun episode. You know, it was the most interesting thing about these what ifs is the versions that they're choosing to take out. You know, like this is specifically Tony Stark at the end of Avengers 1. You know, so like you kind of have to like put your headspace back then and be like, okay, well, he doesn't know who Thanos is. So Gamora has to keep on saying like, I am the daughter of Thanos, and then he has to like put those pieces together to be like, oh, that, you know, that big battle we just had, that was okay, that's who that was, you know. You know, so just interesting ideas like that. And of course, you know, Hulk is not on Sakaar, and none of that stuff ends up happening because this is much earlier in the timeline. Well, Sakaar timeline, I don't know, the time works weird there. But yeah, in any case, I had fun with this one. You know, it's a little death race, also just kind of proof that, you know, Tony Stark can kind of just come into any situation, and if he's got the technology, he can kind of just take over the world. So there's that. But yeah, I'm very curious how this lines up with the next one, because this was supposed to be a season 1 episode, and they did not introduce that Infinity Destroyer Crusher machine at all. So I'm not entirely sure what's up with that, but in any case, I'm excited for the next episodes. I know I'm already like 2 episodes behind, but you know, it's the holidays, doing what I can, and I'll see you guys on the next one. All right.